Okay, so now that we're going to go start looking for some materials out in the real world, I wanted to take a couple looks at the model again because it looks like we've got what we need to find is we need to find some sort of a travertine tile. I'm going to find something a little bit more pumped up than this because I think that this is a little bit subtle for translation via an online model. And then we also want to look for a concrete. Let's keep looking through here. I took a photo of one of the materials, so we'll use this in the actual model. And then we've also got some sort of tile happening in the pool, which is a little hard to see here. And then we've got, let's see, what else? In this section, back here, we've got this small little glass mosaic, and then we've got this plaster above. Okay, so we're going to go on a little hunt here and find what we need to find. So if I just, first things first, easiest place to go, of course, is online. What I like to do when I'm searching for a texture is ask the internet to find me something that is seamless. So if I'm looking for travertine, I'm going for travertine seamless texture. And then I just kind of scroll through and see what I can find. I like to try to find something that's like a moderate file size. If it's huge, if the image that you're using is a giant file, it's going to weigh your model down. We'll talk about that a little bit later, and we'll talk about how to manage that a little bit later. But for now, so I found this, and what I would do is I would create a separate folder. Let's go ahead and minimize this or get rid of that. I would create a separate folder called materials. And I've already gone through and dragged them over, but basically create your own folder for the materials for this specific model and just drag that material and then rename it. You want to make sure that this might be obvious, but you want to make sure that you actually click on the material itself here as opposed to dragging the thumbnail, because the thumbnail will be a very tiny digital file. You want the full resolution here. So we got a travertine texture, we have a mosaic tile texture. Here's some other things to look for. Make sure when you're looking for a texture that you don't get something like this. See how this has a band at the bottom that's telling you that that's where the texture, you should be cutting it. That will actually tile and become a part of your texture. Also, this has a little stamp of a little watermark on it because they don't want you to use it without their permission. So I wouldn't go for something like that. Okay. Again, this kind of stuff, if you click on this and you actually drag this over, this is what you're looking at is what is actually going to tile as a texture, so that's no good either. We have a concrete texture here that we got. Again, concrete, seamless texture. And then you can see once you search for something that's seamless, typically you'll get some other options or some other choices up at the top that you can explore. I'm going to download this plaster texture and do a little bit of editing on it. And then I found these pool tiles that I really liked that we'll go ahead and use in the pool. Okay, so these have all been downloaded, dragged over, renamed. So now all that's left is to bring them into the model. Let's do this travertine first. Okay, let's go to my select tool. And then now I always just go back to select as the default. I'm going to open up my bucket and I'm going to go home. And I'm going to start with the default material. This is always where I start when I'm making a new material. So I right click on that and I duplicate. Cancel. Scrap that. I don't right click and duplicate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this tool, I'm going to select this texture, and I'm going to go down here to color, and I'm going to go to new texture. If you're working on a PC, you should just have a little button off to the side that looks kind of like a texture box with stripes on it. You can click on that and that's going to give you your new texture. I'll navigate to where I've stored this. So I'm in my materials window and I'm going to open up the travertine. Open. It's going to default the width. It's maintaining the proportions of the file. And the reason it's maintaining the proportions is because this default texture has no proportions associated with it. So it's not going to try to warp it when I bring it in. So I'm just going to let it come in at whatever it wants to come in. Okay, so it's 3 feet big. 3 feet wide, I think. Now I can double click on this wall and just select this one face. And let's see if this truly was seamless. So we select back on that texture and click. Not really. It looks like it's tiling a little bit, which I'm not in love with. But what I'm gonna do is edit this texture to make this tile fit with the rectangle that we're gonna, or the square pattern that we're gonna create. So it's a good way to test right away if it actually really is a seamless texture before you bring it in. Or once you bring it in, you can see whether or not they were telling the truth when they said seamless. Okay, so let's close this down. But we're still gonna make this texture work for us. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to divide this top line. Well, it's actually not going to work because we've got two lines. So what I'll instead do is I want to create the rhythm that they have in the real space of the actual tiles. And it's actually they're square tiles, and it's divided up into 8 separate tiles. So if I drag a line along here just as a guide for myself on the closed group, I can now right click on this and divide it. And I'm going to divide it into 8. I'm just going to type in 8, enter. So I'm going to select one of these lines here to see that the two joints have actually divided the way they should. And I'll delete one of the lines just to get it out of the way. So these tiles should be, just at least for the sake of our model, should be 4'2" and 15/16 big. We're not going to go that crazy. We're just going to say 4'3". So now I'll select this line and delete it. And I'll delete that guide. So let's do 4'3", and then down 4'3" with the tape. And now I can make a line along that guide. I open the group up. I'll select this line. Using my move tool, I'm going to copy that line over times 7. And that'll give me the division I want all the way across. Now I can just take one line and do that straight across the front. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this face, right click on it, and first thing I have to do is go back to my texture, select this texture, reapply it to this face, and then right click and go to texture. Texture position. Notice I'm just dragging it up into place. And now I'm gonna stretch it across so that it pops to that point. Then I'm gonna drag it down so that they fall in line. So I want these four points to be at the 4 corners of this shape that I've made, this square. This blue pin is what stretches the material up or down. So I'll stretch that material up, right click, done. Now I'll sample from this material and apply that to each rectangle or each square. And click outside of the group to close it. Okay, great. I'm going to do the same thing over here. A line straight across. And then I'll start from the outside. And what did we say it was? It was 4'3". So I'll start from this side, 4'3" in. 4'3". 4'3". And then just take my line tool straight down like this. Now I can sample from this set texture using my bucket tool. I hit Command or Control and select that material. See, it's off a little bit in some places, but I'm not going to stress too much about it right now. If I wanted to move each one, I could open it up, right-click, Texture, Position, and move it into place. Let's do the same thing over here. Starting from here, we're going to type in 4'3", select this guide, copy that, times 5 times 6 times 7. Just drawing lines straight down. Okay. Again, I'll sample that same texture and just click all the way across. And then Shift D to delete the guides. Let's do this plaster. This will be pretty easy. And I'm gonna paint the whole thing, and then we're gonna divide up the inside to get that mosaic texture. So again, I start with the default texture. I go to color and pull down this drop down, and I make a new texture. And the new texture I want is this plaster. Open that up. It's 3 by 3. Fine. We can always make that bigger. And I'm just going to paint the entire thing that color, that thing. You know, to be honest, I'm actually okay with the size of this, so I'm just going to leave it as is. I might want to make it a little darker, so I'm going to edit it, go to my color wheel, and just make it a little darker. Close. Now again, I go back to my default texture, pull down from my color, and I'm going to do a new texture. This time I'm going to do these mosaic tiles. Open. I think 3 by 3 is probably going to work for this too, but let's try 2 by 2, 2 feet by 2 feet. And notice that because they're linked, when I adjust the width, the height automatically adjusts. So I say okay, go to my select tool, open up just the inside face of, or open this group up and just select the inside face and apply those mosaic tiles. I'm liking it. I'm feeling okay about it. Then I know that if I take my line tool and draw a line out a little bit and down, whoops, straight down along the blue axis, hold shift down, I can also apply that same color to just the edge of that. Get a little bit of a reveal on that edge. Okay, now this is a little bright. So I'm going to open this up and edit it, dragging the color down a little bit. Close. Let's see. Let's go ahead and hide this water. Let's bring the last of our textures in. Opening up the bucket tool, starting with the default. I'm going to go to my new texture. And I'm going to go to the pool tile, which is this one. Open. This one wants to be much bigger, so I'm going to do 5 feet just as a start, see how that goes. Say OK. Now here I have to select the actual faces by double-clicking on this shape, or double-clicking on the floor slab that has the plan on it, and selecting just the faces of the bottom of the pool. Go back to my bucket tool. I'm hitting B for bucket to activate it again, and then selecting that floor. It's got a little bit of a repeat that's pretty obvious, but I'm okay with it. What I do want to do right away is edit it and make it a little bigger. So I'm opening it up and I'm making this 8 feet. Close. And then select that again and apply that to the sides of the pool as well. And then select and click out into space. One final material that we can bring in is the concrete. So let's go to back to home again, and we're back to the default material. We go to color, new texture, grab that concrete, open that up. I'm okay with 5 feet. Let's see how that looks. I'm going to open up the same exact group I just opened up, because this time we're going to apply it to the floor. And I'll grab the concrete and I'm just going to apply it to the whole thing, and that's going to get rid of that plan. So the plan's now gone. Let's edit this and make it a little bigger. I'm going to edit that and make it 8 feet. So the repeat's a little less obvious. Sometimes the more obvious the repeat is on the floor, if you make the texture a lot bigger, it tends to lose the repeat. Okay, all we really have left to do is to make our own material. So let's do that in our next video.